Jim Jones, a legendary figure in hip-hop and a longtime member of Dipset, has recently found himself at the heart of a major FBI sting operation that has sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community. Leaked court documents, wiretapped conversations, and covert deals have all led to a stunning revelation. Jim Jones has been under surveillance for quite some time, and the truth is now coming to light. But what exactly did the authorities uncover? How did Jim Jones get tangled in this legal nightmare? And could this spell the end of his career? Stay tuned as we break down all the details, the shocking evidence, and the real reason Jim Jones is now facing serious legal issues. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Jim Jones has been a prominent figure in hip-hop for decades, known for his pivotal role in the iconic group The Diplomats, Dipset, and for his hit single, We Fly High. While his career has seen both successes and setbacks, his associations with the streets have always raised suspicions. For years, there have been rumors about his connections to organized crime, gang activity, and shady business practices. However, the FBI's recent sting operation has turned those whispers into full-blown headlines. Leaked reports reveal that Jim Jones had been under investigation for months, possibly years, and the evidence the feds uncovered is now threatening to bring him serious legal trouble. In this video, we're taking a deep dive into the FBI's operation, explaining how Jim Jones became involved, the secret phone recordings that allegedly implicate him, and what this means for his career, freedom, and future. But before we dive in, I want to know your thoughts. Do you think Jim Jones is guilty, or is this just another case of the feds targeting a high-profile rapper? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's get into the details. Be sure to stay with us until the end, because we'll be revealing the most shocking piece of information about this case that the media hasn't shared yet. To understand how Jim Jones ended up in this legal mess, we need to trace the FBI's investigation back to its origins. Law enforcement doesn't just randomly decide to put a rapper under surveillance. These kinds of operations require months, sometimes even years, of planning, evidence gathering, and following leads before anything happens. Sources close to the case suggest that federal agents had been monitoring certain high-profile individuals in the hip-hop scene for quite some time, focusing on suspected ties to criminal organizations, money laundering, and illegal business dealings. Jim Jones's name continued to surface throughout their investigation. The real turning point came, however, when an informant, someone connected to both the streets and the music industry, began providing law enforcement with valuable information. This informant allegedly passed on crucial details about meetings, transactions, and even direct conversations involving Jim Jones. In response, the feds did what they do best. They started listening in. According to leaked reports, federal agents managed to secure wiretaps on individuals connected to the case, recording phone calls and messages that would later become vital pieces of evidence. The wiretap reportedly revealed more than anyone anticipated. And just when Jim Jones thought his conversations were secure and off the radar, law enforcement was listening in on every single word. But what exactly was captured in these recordings? And how did it contribute to sealing Jim Jones's fate? Stick with me, because what we're about to discuss will blow your mind. One thing we've learned over time is that when the feds start listening, it often leads to significant consequences. In Jim Jones's case, the FBI's wiretap apparently uncovered conversations that raised serious concerns. Let's be clear, the government doesn't tap phones without a valid reason. They need to provide enough probable cause to convince a judge that someone is involved in criminal activity. Once the warrant is granted, every call, text, and voice memo becomes evidence that can be used against the person. So, what exactly did Jim Jones say that caught the FBI's attention? This isn't the first time Jim Jones has been tied to wiretapped conversations. Back in 2019, his name came up in a leaked call with associates of Tekashi 6699, where they discussed violence, street retaliation, and how to keep people under control. That conversation alone raised eyebrows, but at the time, Jim Jones avoided facing serious charges. Fast forward to today, and his name has surfaced once again in a major investigation. Sources reveal that the FBI's wiretap in this case allegedly captured private conversations between Jim Jones and individuals known to have criminal ties. These discussions reportedly involved financial transactions, coded language that investigators believe referred to illegal activities, and even instructions on how to handle specific business matters. Now here's where things get complicated. Some reports suggest that Jim Jones wasn't merely an innocent participant. He was allegedly giving orders. Law enforcement officials believe the recordings showed Jim Jones discussing strategies, transactions, and ways to avoid detection by law enforcement. If these claims are accurate, the FBI may have evidence suggesting Jim Jones was directly involved in coordinating illegal activities. However, there's a catch. Coded language can be difficult to interpret. Just because someone uses vague language during a phone call doesn't necessarily mean they are engaging in criminal activity. But if the government can prove that the language used referred to specific crimes, that's where the real trouble begins. The big question now is whether these recordings will hold up in court. We've seen cases where wiretapped conversations were dismissed due to lack of context, as defense attorneys often argue that vague statements don't equate to actual criminal behavior. But here's the thing. The feds don't make moves like this unless they're confident in their evidence. If they've decided to go after Jim Jones, it's likely they believe they have a solid case. And this isn't just about one incident. There are rumors circulating that the FBI doesn't just have a couple of phone calls, but possibly months, if not years, of recorded conversations. So, what's next for Jim Jones, and could this mark the start of the end of his career? Stay tuned, because the next revelation is even more shocking. If there's one thing you should understand about the federal government, it's that they don't take action unless they're confident they have a winning case. The feds boast a 90% conviction rate, largely because they don't bring charges unless they're sure their case is rock solid. So how did they build this case against Jim Jones? It wasn't something that happened overnight. Step 1. Following. The money. One of the biggest warning signs for federal investigators is unexplained wealth. We've seen this repeatedly, whether it's with rappers, politicians, or business figures. When the money doesn't add up, the feds start paying attention. Jim Jones has been in the rap game for decades, but in recent years, fans have noticed his music isn't charting like it once did. Despite this, he's been seen living a luxurious lifestyle, buying expensive cars, flashy jewelry, and maintaining a lavish way of living that raises questions. So where's all this money coming from? Federal agents reportedly started tracking financial transactions tied to Jim Jones and his associates. These weren't just regular bank transfers. We're talking about large sums of cash flowing through multiple accounts, offshore companies, and even shell corporations. Leaked reports suggest authorities suspect some of these transactions were designed to hide the true source of the money. When the feds start investigating money laundering, things can quickly take a dangerous turn. Step 2. The power of the informant. If there's one thing the feds excel at, it's flipping people. In this case, it's believed that someone close to Jim Jones may have been working with authorities. When the FBI launches a sting operation, it's not just based on surveillance and wiretaps. They often rely on inside sources. These sources are typically people who are either looking to escape their own legal problems or want to take down bigger targets. So, who snitched? We've seen this before, like with Tekashi 6ix9ine, who flipped on his entire crew, leading to multiple arrests. Similarly, in other high-profile cases, insiders have turned state witnesses to reduce their sentences. Some rumors suggest that a former associate of Jim Jones, someone with deep connections to the streets, might have been feeding information to the feds for a while. If this is true, it could explain how the authorities were able to build such a strong case. The issue is that once the feds have an informant inside, they don't stop. They keep connecting the dots, gathering more evidence, and eventually move in for the arrest. This brings us to the next major revelation. What exactly is Jim Jones being charged with? Step 3. The potential charges Jim Jones could be facing. While we don't yet have the official details of the indictment, sources suggest that Jim Jones is currently facing serious federal charges, and here's what could be on the table. First, conspiracy to commit racketeering. If prosecutors can prove that Jim Jones was part of an ongoing criminal organization, he could be slammed with a RICO charge, which comes with the possibility of a very lengthy prison term. Second, money laundering. If those questionable financial transactions tie back to illegal operations, Jim Jones might also be staring down a federal money laundering case. Then there's aiding and abetting criminal activity. Even if he wasn't directly involved in the crimes, if prosecutors can show he supported or facilitated illegal acts, he could still face charges. Obstruction of justice is also a risk if Jim Jones attempted to hide evidence or tipped off others about an investigation that could pile on even more legal trouble. What makes this even more alarming is that under RICO laws, federal prosecutors don't have to prove that Jim Jones himself committed any specific crime. They just need to show that he was associated with a criminal organization, and that alone could land him behind bars for years. So what's next? Right now, Jim Jones's legal team is scrambling to figure out how to respond. Will he battle it out in court, or will he cut a plea deal to reduce potential jail time? One thing is certain: this is no ordinary celebrity legal drama. This could become the most intense legal fight of Jim Jones's career. The real question is, are these charges based on actual wrongdoing, or is Jim Jones simply the latest high-profile target of the justice system? That question looms large as we dig deeper into the case. It raises the issue of whether Jim Jones is guilty of actual crimes, or if he's being singled out due to his status in the entertainment world. Historically, the hip-hop community has faced aggressive attention from law enforcement. Time and time again, rappers have been arrested or investigated, not only for what they've allegedly done, but also because of their associations. Could Jim Jones now be facing heat because of the company he keeps, rather than his own actions? We've seen this pattern before. Tupac Shakur was frequently pursued by authorities, and many believed he was being deliberately targeted. Snoop Dogg once faced murder charges despite having a weak connection to the actual crime. Meek Mill spent years battling the court system, with many fans believing he was being unfairly singled out. More recently, YFN Lucci, Young Thug, and Gunna have all been entangled in RICO cases, highlighting how the government's crackdown on rap artists is intensifying. Now, Jim Jones, a veteran in the rap scene, finds himself in the middle of a large-scale federal investigation. But why now? Some speculate that this situation goes beyond mere criminal allegations. There are whispers that powerful interests in the music industry could be working to limit certain artists' influence. Hip-hop has evolved into a major cultural force, and with that, some believe certain figures are being deliberately silenced. Could it be that Jim Jones was merely talking tough, a common practice in hip-hop, without actually committing any crimes? If so, this could be about more than just the charges on paper. As for his next move, Jim Jones may be forced to consider a plea deal if prosecutors have built a solid case against him. Accepting a deal could mean a reduced sentence, probation, or even house arrest instead of years in federal prison. It would also mean avoiding a drawn-out and costly trial that might not end in his favor. But taking that route comes with a heavy price. His image and reputation could suffer greatly from admitting guilt, even if it means less time behind bars.